So I wanted to follow up on my previous video about Peter Turchin. And one thing that I disagree with, by the way, his analysis is really good, and his books are really good, and people should read them. And I think he's contributing greatly to the conversation, and I'm glad we have him. But of course, we can disagree. So here's another disagreement that I have. One thing that he mentioned, and this was specifically mentioned again in that Jason Hartman video. So I'll put a link under this video to that video where Jason Hartman interviews him. And one thing they talk about, well, many things, but one thing that I wanted to talk about was that societal collapse, however, population collapse. And he argues that population collapse is a weirdly way a tool that you can use against the elites in order to reevaluate their wages, because if the population is collapsing, then there's less labor force, and because of there's less labor force, the elite need to push out more money in order to make sure that they get their will done. And of course, this is completely nonsense in the modern world, because ever since the borders have been opened in the United States or Germany and so on and so forth, this is an absolute losing strategy for the middle class, because not just they're being crushed under competing for lower wages with illegal immigration or people from other countries, their culture is getting destroyed. The only thing that they really had in order to recreate the society after a potential collapse, right? So if after a potential collapse, the only thing you have is your culture, your history, and your feeling of togetherness. And there's probably a German word for that, but feeling of togetherness is what kind of solves the next problem, so the generations can restart after a potential collapse of cyclic collapse of civilization. And of course, the elites don't care, because as said in the previous video, the childless elites don't care because they have distanced themselves from the creator so far that their current I don't want to say the word, but let's just go with something else. Well, nihilistic, but it's just the reason for their existence is worldly pleasures in one way. Because, well, here's one question for you, right? Who has a better future, the Taliban, who may not be the highest IQ people on the world, but they are willing to die for those ideas that they hold dearly, or the people who have very high IQ in Western societies, but they enjoy this world too much, in the sense that they don't even want to have children, and they want to make sure that they are using up all the time that they have on this world, and they want to make sure that they elongate that time with medical serums and practices and whatnot. So if you think about that really deep, right? If you really think about it, who is worthy of following? Don't join any groups, man. This is a mental exercise. This is not reality. This is just a hypothetical question. What I'm saying is that the people who, let's just say, are in the middle class, and let's just say a nicer thing, who are willing to die for their children, hold the keys to the future. And no elite, whoever Peter Turchin is talking about, or who are currently dictating your social economical future, have a future. So in that sense, what I'm saying is that population collapse only benefits the elite. So in the hypothesis is that population collapse, he argues that will at least have some kind of wealth redistribution effect. But honestly, that may have been true, where we were in Middle Ages, where a country had, let's just say, Croatia wasn't back then, but let's just say Middle Ages France, or Middle Ages England, or Hungary, or you name it. They had a certain number of population. If that population declined, then they had very little options, fast options, because language barriers, cultural barriers, and other kingdoms not necessarily letting their own peasants go outside. But if you take a look at even the old Hungarian kingdom, they took in a lot of Germans, the Saxon. They took in because the Hungarian nobility wanted to grow without work. So they pulled in immigrants, German immigrants and Romanian immigrants into Transylvania, by the thousands, to the point where they had new cities popping up. And eventually the Hungarian nobility lost control because they didn't keep their culture cohesive. So one of the reasons why some of these Balkan countries fell apart during the Ottoman Empire expansion was that they didn't have a cohesion of a country that they used to have before. So it was much easier to bribe off some parts of a kingdom where they spoke different language, and it was much easier to stoke conflict in between those different cultures. So I don't know, like, he studies a great deal of stuff, and I respect him, and you should all read his work, and it's really good stuff. But I think this is a miss, and population collapse is not gonna help you. It's just gonna help the elites further, because they can, for a while, eventually it will be their demise too, especially their demise, because turns out you're gonna have much more common in the middle class and lower middle class. People have much more in common, no matter from which culture they're coming from, than from their own class of people or their own group of people, but they're elites, right? And it's commonly said that China is most afraid of not the United States, but their own Chinese people. And guess what? The United States elites are not afraid of China that much. They're afraid of you. All right. And with that said, talk to you next time, after you comment something nice in the video or something funny, because I read them all. And talk to you next time.